Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. I am R.S. Raghu and with me is Ashish P. Abraham bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says this year's budget will establish India as a lead player in the global green energy market. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman meets US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in Bengaluru ahead of first G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says G20 meet to address challenges of data security and data privacy of digital world. India's Defence Secretary Giridhar Armani and his Sri Lankan counterparts review bilateral ties during 7th Annual Defence Dialogue in New Delhi. World Book Fair to be held from 25th of this month at Pragati Maidan in New Delhi. And in cricket, Australia enter final of ICC Women's T20 World Cup beating India by 5 runs at Cape Town in South Africa. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said this year's budget will play an instrumental role in establishing India as a lead player in the global green energy market. He added that this will help in increasing the green jobs and ensuring global good. While addressing the first post-budget webinar on green growth on Thursday virtually, Mr. Modi said the government is taking steps to provide every possible assistance to ensure green growth of the economy.
2014 के बाद से ही भारत मेजर इकोनॉमीज में रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी कैपेसिटी एडिशन में सबसे तेज रहा है. हमारा ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड बताता है कि रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी रिसोर्सेज को लेकर भारत जो लक्ष्य तय करता है उसे समय से पहले पूरा करके दिखाता है. हमारी इंस्टॉल्ड इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कैपेसिटी में 40% नॉन फोसिल फ्यूल के योगदान के लक्ष्य को भारत ने 9 साल पहले ही प्राप्त कर लिया.
The Prime Minister said every budget presented by the government since 2014 has been taking forward new age reforms to solve the present challenges. He added, this year's budget provides several opportunities for investors and people of this country to protect their future by moving towards green growth. Talking about the initiatives taken in this year's budget, the Prime Minister said several key announcements were made in the budget regarding green growth, which are the foundation stones for the bright future of the country's future generations. He said schemes and policy initiatives like PM Pranam, Gobar Dhan, and vehicle scrapping policy will play a key role in shaping the future of the country. The U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, Janet L. Yellen, met the Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman at G20 FMCBG venue in Bengaluru on Thursday. A press statement issued by her office says that during the meeting, Secretary Yellen stressed on extending the support of her country to India's G20 presidency and discussed cooperation on the evolution of multilateral development banks and health finance coordination. The U.S. Secretary thanked India for taking a leadership role in promoting sovereign debt restructuring and encouraging faster G20 efforts on existing debt restructuring cases. She has said that over the next couple of days, she will look forward to working with her counterparts to advance work on the global macroeconomy. Later, addressing the media persons, the U.S. Secretary said that forums like G20 are important for evolving policies on macroeconomic cooperation, climate change, and multilateral development banks.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said that data security and data privacy are the biggest challenges of the digital world, and issues connected to them are expected to be addressed during the G20 meeting. He was addressing the G20 Festival of Thinkers Summit at Symbiosis International Deemed University in Pune on Thursday. In today's digital age, data will play an important role. Data is the fuel of this new era, so data security will be an important challenge in the future, said Dr. S. Jaishankar. The External Affairs Minister said that India's G20 chairmanship is not just an event, but an opportunity to introduce India to the world, which expects a lot from India.
A collection of 20 nations. It's not just a presidency which comes our way like so many other organizations do. This is a very special responsibility at a very difficult moment in international relations. A what India could do, probably will do in this 1 year, will actually make a very big difference to world politics. So it's not a responsibility that we take lightly.
External Affairs Minister Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar has extended his greetings to Guyanese Foreign Minister Hugh Todd and the government and the people of Guyana on their Republic Day. In a tweet, Dr. Jaishankar expressed delight at strengthening bilateral cooperation and development partnership between both the countries. He also congratulated the government and the people of Brunei Darussalam and its Foreign Minister Dato Eriwan on the 39th National Day. Dr. Jaishankar expressed confidence that the friendly relationship between India and Brunei will keep advancing further.
In Madhya Pradesh, the first meeting of the G20 Culture Working Group was inaugurated in Khajuraho on Thursday. Addressing the inaugural session, Union Minister Dr. Virendra Kumar said that culture is very important in maintaining mutual relations. Culture has the power to unite. He further added that culture is also effective in boosting the economy. He hoped that this platform of G20 will contribute significantly to strengthening the culture. Union Minister of State for Culture, Meenakshi Lekhi, said that cultural equality and harmony in India are from our heritage. She said the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family and one future, and integral humanism are very old, and India has always stood by them. In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a news commentary on Indian Railways in mission mode for 100% electrification.
In its mission to make the entire rail network of the country run on electric traction and shun diesel-based trains, Indian Railways has achieved an important milestone by electrifying all routes in Uttar Pradesh, even as it embarks on a journey to become a net-zero carbon emission railway system in another 7 years. The electrification of the 85-kilometer Subhagpur-Pachparwa section in Gorakhpur-based Northeastern Railway has led to the entire state's railway lines being electrified. With this, the zone joined the East Coast Railway, North Central Railway, West Central Railway, Eastern Railway and Southeastern Railway, which stand completely electrified. Working on a target of 100% electrification of all broad gauge routes, the Railways has so far achieved around 85% progress. Indian Railways plan to shift to renewables in line with India's global commitment to renewable energy as part of various international climate negotiations. The projected energy demand of the Indian Railways in 2029-30 is expected to be about 8,200 megawatts. To achieve net zero carbon emission, the expected requirement of renewable capacity by 2029-30 would be about 30,000 megawatts, officials explained. The Indian railway system is the nation's principal route for interior transportation. Railways are practically the country's lifeline. It provides the country's large-scale cargo and passenger traffic transportation demands, contributing to economic growth and encouraging national cohesion. Hence, Indian Railways have become the foundation of India's physical transportation system. In April 1853, India's first railway network was inaugurated for the public to travel between Mumbai and Thane. Then the route stretched to Kalyan in 1854. In 1856, it extended to Khopoli. Finally, in June 1858, the Khandala-Pune segment was completed and opened. Simultaneously, railway lines built in the first portion of the nation's eastern side ran from Howrah to Hooghly, covering 37 kilometers. It became operational in 1854. In 1854, the Howrah-Hooghly part stretched to Pandua, and in 1855, it extended to Raniganj coal mines. The nation's southern section got its first 105-kilometer railway line the following year. Meanwhile, the Howrah-Khana-Rajmahal portion of the railway was completed in 1860. Following this, the route from Kanpur to Allahabad was inaugurated in 1859. In 1861, the railway stretched westward to Kadalundi. After that, in 1862, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, then Mughal Sarai, was also depicted on an Indian railway plan. The Kanpur-Etawah segment was inaugurated to trade in 1860, and all bottlenecks between Howrah and Delhi were repaired between 1862 and 1866. Finally, the operation of the all-rail connection between Kolkata and Mumbai began in 1870. The railway route between Mughal Sarai and Lahore was completed the following year. Most of India's major cities were interconnected by rail from 1853 to 1871. The overall route kilometrage in 1870 remained 7,680 kilometers. It increased to 39,834 kilometers at the beginning of the century and 66,234 kilometers by 1940. As of 1947, Indian Railways had a total length of 65,217 kilometers, of which 10,523 kilometers were in Pakistan, leaving India with 54,694 kilometers. India holds the second biggest rail infrastructure position in Asia and the fourth largest on the planet. However, India is the world's leading country regarding passengers per kilometer generated. Indian Railways have taken the lead in reducing the nation's dependence on petroleum-based energy by rapid electrification of railway tracks. In recent years, the Central Organization for Railway Electrification, CORE, has contributed the majority of total electrified sections of Indian Railway. CORE was set up in 1979 under the Ministry of Railways with the main objective of electrification of railway tracks on Indian Railways. In order to electrify important railway routes for harnessing maximum benefits from their traffic potential, 9 project units of CORE are operational at Ahmedabad, Ambala, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, Jaipur, Lucknow, Guwahati and Secunderabad. Indian Railways electrified 52,247 route kilometers RKMs till March the 31st, 2022, which is about 80% of the total broad gauge network of Indian Railways. Out of a total of 52,247 RKMs, CORE has carried out electrification work of 41,191 RKMs, which is roughly 79% of the electrification work of the entire Indian Railways. CORE, along with other organizations, has planned to electrify entire broad gauge network routes of Indian Railways by December 2023. The pace of electrification has gathered momentum in the last few years, as since 2014 a record 30,446 RKM has been electrified against electrification of 3,874 RKM during 2007 to 14. Remarkably, out of the total 52,247 RKM electrified so far on pan-India basis, 50% has been electrified only during the last 5 years.
India's Defence Secretary Giridhar Armane and his Sri Lankan counterpart reviewed bilateral ties during the 7th Annual Defence Dialogue in New Delhi on Thursday. During the meeting, the ongoing defence cooperation activities between the two countries were reviewed, both sides agreeing to increase the complexity of bilateral exercises. They reaffirmed their commitment to avail maximum benefits from each other's experience and capacities. Mr. Armane thanked his Sri Lankan counterpart, General Kamal Gunaratne, and his delegation for a fruitful dialogue. He stated that India looks forward to continue engagement based on the common understanding reached at the dialogue. This annual defence dialogue is the highest institutionalized interactive mechanism between both the countries. Its significance in charting the future course of the relations between the armed forces of India and Sri Lanka was highlighted by the importance given to the talks by both sides. The armed forces of both countries continue to seek bilateral cooperation in multiple fields, and increased engagements are a positive sign for the future of bilateral relations. Sri Lanka President Ranil Wickremesinghe has said that a date for the local government elections still hasn't been announced. Addressing the parliament, he dismissed the reports of 9th of March to be the date of polls. He added that there has been no official decision made to hold the election. The President claimed that the 5-member election commission was not unanimous on the conduct of the polls. Opposition parties claim that the ruling Sri Lanka Podujana Party does not want the election to go ahead, fearing a humiliating defeat. Mr. Wickremesinghe said that there are no funds at present, but all stakeholders can discuss a possible solution. This is All India Radio, giving you the world news.
Welcome back to World News. India has urged member nations of the United Nations to stay dedicated to the conservation and preservation of the oceans and their biodiversity. New Delhi also stressed upon supporting sustainable economic development and the well-being of coastal people under the United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea, UNCLOS. Presenting a draft statement via video conferencing in New Delhi on Wednesday, Minister of State for Earth Science Dr. Jitendra Singh pointed out that the country's approach to biodiversity management is congruent with three globally accepted principles comprising conservation, sustainable usage, and equitable benefit sharing. The draft also supported the High Ambition Coalition for the early conclusion of the international legally binding instrument Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction BBNJ under UNCLOS. Dr. Singh expressed hope that the adoption of the BBNJ agreement would signal the international community's strong commitment to the conservation and sustainable use of marine biodiversity in areas beyond national jurisdiction. In his statement, the minister underlined that despite significant progress on several major issues, negotiations are still ongoing. He pointed out that consensus has still not been arrived at over important issues like funding, intellectual property rights, and institutional mechanisms at the Intergovernmental Conference. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will be on a two-day visit to India from the 25th of this month. Chancellor Scholz will be accompanied by senior officials and a high-powered business delegation. He will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan. Prime Minister and Chancellor will hold discussions on bilateral, regional and global issues. The two leaders will also interact with CEOs and business leaders of both sides. Chancellor Scholz will also call on the President Draupadi Murmu. This will be the German Chancellor's first visit to India in his current role. This is the first standalone visit of a German Chancellor to India since the biennial intergovernmental consultation mechanism commenced in 2011. The intergovernmental consultation is a whole-of-government framework under which ministers from both countries hold discussions in their respective areas of responsibility and report on the outcome of discussions to the Prime Minister and Chancellor. The India-Germany strategic partnership is underpinned by shared values, trust and mutual understanding. Robust investment and trade linkages, cooperation in the areas of green and sustainable development, and growing people-to-people ties have strengthened bilateral relations. India and Germany also work closely at multilateral and international platforms, notably as part of the G4 for UNSC reforms. Chancellor Scholz's visit will enable both sides to take stock and progress on the key outcomes of the 6th IGC, strengthen security and defense cooperation, work towards closer economic ties, enhance opportunity for mobility of talent and give strategic guidance to ongoing collaboration in science and technology. He will proceed to Bengaluru on 26th of February.
Foreign Minister of Czech Republic Jan Lipavsky is scheduled to visit India from 26th February to 1st March. He will be accompanied by members of the Parliament, Deputy Minister for Science, Research and Innovation, and a high-level official and business delegation. During the visit, Foreign Minister Lipavsky will hold bilateral talks with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. The two leaders are expected to discuss the entire range of bilateral relations and exchange views on regional and international issues of mutual interest. Foreign Minister Lipavsky will also be attending the inaugural session of the India-EU Business and Sustainability Conclave organized by CII on 20th February. He will also visit Mumbai during the visit. India and Czech Republic have historically enjoyed warm and friendly relations which have been strengthened in the last several years through high-level exchanges and enhanced cooperation across sectors. Foreign Minister Lipavsky's visit is expected to provide further momentum to India's bilateral relations with the Czech Republic. In Tajikistan, an earthquake of magnitude 6.8 occurred 67 kilometers west of Murghab on Thursday. According to the United States Geological Survey, the quake, originating at a depth of 20.5 km, was felt at 6:07 Indian Standard Time. No casualties have been reported so far. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken stock of the situation and is monitoring developments relating to the impact of the earthquake in Tajikistan. Sources said External Affairs Ministry is in touch with Tajik authorities and relevant government bodies are closely coordinating any required assistance.
Chinese and Japanese officials met in Tokyo for formal security talks for the first time in 4 years. Wednesday's meeting aimed at stabilizing increasingly strained relations. In Japan's national security strategy released in December, China was described as the greatest strategic challenge to Japan's peace and security. Both sides expressed concerns at the meeting. China said it was troubled by Japan's military buildup, while Tokyo is worried about China's suspected use of spy balloons as well as Chinese military activities around Japan, including cooperation with Russia. In December, Japan, a key US ally, announced a historic rise in defense spending, pledging to double the defense budget to 2% of GDP by 2027. China and Japan also discussed the disputed islands in the East China Sea. The Senkaku Islands are administered by Tokyo but claimed by Beijing, which refers to them as the Diaoyu Islands. The 26th meeting of the Working Mechanism for Consultation and Coordination on India-China Border Affairs, WMCC, was held in Beijing on Wednesday. This was the first WMCC in-person meeting since the 14th meeting held in July 2019. During the meeting, both sides reviewed the situation along the line of actual control LAC in the western sector of India-China border areas. They also discussed proposals for disengagement in the remaining areas in an open and constructive manner. Both the countries expressed hope that it would help in restoration of peace and tranquility along the LAC in western sector and create conditions for restoration of normalcy in bilateral relations. India and China agreed to hold the 18th round of senior commanders meeting at an early date to achieve the objective in accordance with the existing bilateral agreements and protocols. The two sides also agreed to continue discussions through military and diplomatic channels.
Canada's military has said it recently discovered evidence of Chinese surveillance efforts in the Arctic. The discovery, first reported by Canadian newspaper The Globe and Mail, has raised questions about China's activities in the far north. It comes after a suspected Chinese spy balloon floated through US and Canadian airspace before it was shot down by the US military. China has also been recently accused of interfering with the Canadian elections. Monitoring buoys were discovered and retrieved last fall as part of Operation Limpet, an ongoing mission by the Canadian military tasked with identifying threats to the country's security by surveilling air, land and sea domains. A spokesperson for Canada's Department of National Defence, Daniel Le-Boutelier, said in a statement that the military is fully aware of recent efforts by China to conduct surveillance operations in Canadian airspace and maritime approaches. Turkey Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu has said that they will widen an investigation into building contractors suspected of violating safety standards following the devastating earthquake in the country. The minister told state broadcaster TRT Haber that 564 suspects have been identified so far, with 160 people formally arrested. Urbanization Minister Murat Kurum said 1,64,000 buildings with more than 530,000 apartments were destroyed or severely damaged by the earthquake. President Tayyip Erdogan has pledged to rebuild housing within 1 year. The number of people killed in Turkey in this month's devastating earthquakes has risen to 43,556.
The New Delhi World Book Fair will be held from the 25th of this month to the 5th of next month at Pragati Maidan in New Delhi. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan will inaugurate the fair on the 25th of February. Briefing media in New Delhi on Thursday, Chairman of National Book Trust, Professor Govind Prasad Sharma, said the theme of the fair is Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. He said several literary and cultural activities focusing on the theme will be organized during the fair. He said more than 2,000 stalls will be set up and more than 1,000 book publishers will participate in the fair. The Sensex and the Nifty witnessed marginal losses on Thursday. Index of top 30 companies at Bombay Stock Exchange Sensex ended near the 59,600 mark. The index of top 50 companies at National Stock Exchange closed near the 17,500 level. Both stocks fell amid mixed global cues. A report from the business desk.
The Sensex lost 139 points or 0.23% to finish at 59,606. The Nifty 50 also fell 43 points or 0.25% to settle at 17,511. Among the global stock markets, Asian shares ended mixed. Singapore's Straits Times fell 1.1%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng declined 0.4%. China's Shanghai Composite Index tumbled 0.1%. On the other hand, South Korea's Kospi added 0.9%. European shares were mixed in intraday trade. Oil prices stabilized today after Brent crude posted its biggest one-day loss for 7 weeks in the previous session, with gains on Russian supply curbs capped by an expected rise in U.S. inventories. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at $81.34 per barrel. Back home at the multi-commodity exchange, gold futures for April was trading at 55,730 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures for March was trading at 65,033 rupees per kilogram. At the forex market, the rupee appreciated 11 paise to trade at 82 rupees and 74 paise against the US dollar in the afternoon deals. Rajesh Lake for World News, All India Radio.
In cricket, Australia have entered the final of ICC Women's T20 World Cup, beating India by 5 runs in the semi-final at Newlands Cricket Ground, Cape Town in South Africa. After setting a victory target of 173 runs, Australia restricted India to 167 for 8 in 20 overs. For India, captain Harmanpreet Kaur was the highest scorer with 52 runs off 34 balls. Earlier, Australia won the toss and elected to bat first. With the help of Beth Munich's half-century of 54 runs and skipper Meg Lanning not out 49, Australia scored 172 for 4 wickets. In the second semi-final on Friday, England will clash with South Africa. The winners of semi-final will meet in the Summit Clash on Sunday. Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Financial Times reports US nominates former MasterCard chief as World Bank president. The Straits Times reports Malaysia to unveil bigger budget to spur economic growth ahead of state elections. The Globe and Mail reports Chrystia Freeland rings national security alarm about founders of Canadian bank with suspected ties to China. The Washington Post writes Yellen at G20 says oil price cap is working and denting Russian revenue. The Japan Times reports G7 chair Japan urged to lead global efforts to rebuild Ukraine. The New York Times report writes at least 10 Palestinians killed during Israeli raid in West Bank. South China Morning Post says Australian Space Telescope uncovers mind-blowing monster galaxies near cosmic dawn.
And now a quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says this year's budget will establish India as a lead player in the global green energy market. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman meets US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in Bengaluru ahead of first G20 Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says G20 meet to address challenges of data security and data privacy of digital world. India's Defence Secretary Giridhar Armane and his Sri Lankan counterparts review bilateral ties during 7th Annual Defence Dialogue in New Delhi. World Book Fair to be held from 25th of this month at Pragati Maidan in New Delhi. And in cricket, Australia enter final of ICC Women's T20 World Cup, beating India by 5 runs at Cape Town in South Africa. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan, by artists from Guyana.
Vishnu Jana ko tene kai
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.